Today's video will be amazing for two reasons. One, because I'll show you something new on how to avoid the Stealership and save a lot of money. And two, I'm going to show you how to grease and lube your drive shaft, and I'm going to do so without making any inappropriate jokes. I am just a little bit worried about shrinkage because it's cold outside today.
There was shrinkage!
No inappropriate jokes starting now. Welcome back to the Tacomaholic channel, everybody. If this is your first time stopping by, please consider subscribing if you love everything related to Tacomas. So yes, today we are going over how to grease the drive shaft, specifically the U-joint on your drive shaft. And the good news is it's relatively simple and you just need a few products. Definitely get some kind of gloves. This is to keep you from banging your knuckles on anything metal when you are removing the fitting. A pair of pliers just in case you can't get the fittings off by hand. A 12mm socket. And definitely some rags for cleanup and or some degreasing wipes to clean off the Zerk fittings. And then the approved grease of your choice and grease gun. For my second gen Tacoma, the manual specifically says you need a lithium-based NLGI2. And this red and tacky is that. And just like the title implies, it is red, so when you are pushing out the old grease on the inside of the U-joints, that's probably going to be black and nasty, so you will be able to tell when the clean red grease is coming out, and you'll be good to go. Of course, links for all of this stuff down in the description below. And now, time to hop under the truck. Alright, so obviously this is the back of the truck. On my 2014 TRD double cab off-road, there are 5 Zerks you need to hit. Squeeze closer so you can see. Here is one right here on the back, right in front of the differential. All you have to do, if you don't know exactly where they are, just follow the drive shaft up towards the front of the truck. Of course, if you just drove somewhere, you might want to let everything cool off so you don't burn yourself. Next one you can see is right here, and it just looks like a metal nipple called a Zerk fitting. The third one is right here. Again, just follow the drive shaft all the way up, which is in 2 pieces. You can see the first piece is behind the transfer case if you have a 4-wheel drive. The second smaller piece is in front of the transfer case. So right there are the first 3. The next one is actually right here towards the front of the vehicle. This is the transfer case right here. We are going to use that 12mm socket to remove this heat shield so we can easily access that. And the next one is right here. That is the front driver tire. The next one is right here, right above the cross member. Now, it just so happened when I parked today to record this video, the back 3 Zerk fittings are all easily accessible with my grease gun. If for some reason when you park and one or more of them are not easily accessible, you can always repark, just pull forward or back up just a little bit and everything will rotate. Or you can lift one or both of the rear tires off the ground, make sure your e-brake's not engaged. Of course, chuck the tires, be safe, and you should be able to rotate the drive shaft by hand to twist everything into place. This is one of those maintenance items I see people sometimes say they do every oil change, so maybe every 5,000 to 10,000 miles, of course, depending on what kind of oil you're running. But when is the last time you greased the Zerks on your drive shaft? It's probably been a little while, so when you are pushing the new grease in, don't be surprised if it's been forever since you've done it, or if you've never done it. Don't be surprised if you don't see any old grease getting pushed out. Just the new red grease will appear because it's bone dry in there, so you probably need to do this more often. Now, if your Tacoma does have like a full skid trilogy under there, it's going to make this more difficult. You should be able to still reach those front forward too. The back 3 should be pretty easy, but it's just going to be tighter confines. So I had my skids removed anyway because I was doing a complete fluid change under there. So if you do know you need to grease your drive shaft, if it's been a while, maybe plan it with a skid removal anyway, like if you're going to take them off to paint them and get the rust off them and all that, just to give yourself tons more room under there to work. So before I get started, I am going to go ahead and remove this heat shield. This is towards the middle of the truck, right here on the cross member. 2 12mm bolts right here.
One eternity later.
For the next step, I am going to go ahead and take a cloth or those degreasing wipes and go ahead and wipe all the Zerks free, because you don't want to force any dirt or sand or, you know, whatever crud is stuck under your truck maybe even road salt if it's during the wintertime. You don't want to force that into the inside of your U-joints and cause all kinds of havoc.
Wreak havoc.
I'm going to go ahead and wipe all those clean before I actually start on any of the Zerks. And as you can see, with just a few twist wipes with a dry cloth, they get pretty nasty up there, so I'm probably going to switch to the degreasing wipes to really get in there and get this crap loose. This is the most forward-facing U-joint I need to access to clean, and on this one and the second one back, the Zerks are sort of at a right angle, so the back three, they just stick out straight. The other ones, they're at a right angle, so just be aware of that. This one was oriented towards the top, and since I need to clean it, you can see I am just under the truck rotating this by hand, not a lot of force. Go ahead and turning that so it's oriented downward. And I know it's dirty in there, but it is actually right there on the tip of my finger, so I'm going to go ahead and clean that off and then get to showing you guys how to actually pump the grease in. And when you do twist this front one, you can see it does move independently of the back. So if your back three are in perfect position, like was in my case, you can twist this one independently so it doesn't interfere with those. Okay, so this is one of the back three Zerks. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do. Of course, I got my grease gun loaded up. You will take the fitting and pop it onto the Zerk right there. You might hear, I don't think it really makes a noise, but just sort of squeeze it on there. There it is, no noise, but you sort of have to use a little force. You will begin pumping grease into the U-joints until you see it come out in the middle. And then you go ahead and stop, because the more you pump after that point, the more you're just going to have to wipe up. And hopefully this will come up on camera.
Pump it!
Alright, I got a little bit coming out under here. See if you guys can see this. There's a little black grease coming out right there, so I'm just going to keep pumping a little more. I probably did about 4 pumps on the gun. You can see more black coming out, no red yet. Just make sure you're not doing this over your face because it looks like it's getting ready to drop. I do have a cloth down there to collect that. I'm not sure if you can hear either. It's sort of making a bubbling noise as it's popping out. Okay, so now I can see the red starting to come out, so I will go ahead and stop, clean this up, and then what works for me to get these off, you just grab the fitting up here and just sort of pull back. That's why I said make sure you have the gloves on so you don't bang your knuckles on anything. And depending on your angle, the leverage can be the hardest part to get started. Oh, that felt great. Okay, so you guys saw how much fun I had getting the fitting, the old fitting off of that Zerk. Even with gloves, you still sort of bang your knuckles around. And it's just a pain and it's a little sloppy. So for the next one, I'm gonna use this. It is the Lock and Loop grease coupler, link down in the description. It is a little pricey. This piece actually costs just as much, if not a little more, than my entire grease gun. However, when you simply attach it right there at the end of your grease gun, simply screws on. You then just press the lever and you can see that reaches out like a claw, wider than normal, and when you let it go, it clamps down onto the Zerk fitting, and then you can just pump grease in easily without any spillage on this end. Pump the grease like normal until you see the old grease start coming out. Then when you're ready to remove it, you don't have to struggle with it at all. Just do the same thing, depress it, it'll let it go, and you're good to go. So even though this is expensive, relatively speaking, definitely worth the money in my opinion, and I will show you how it works in just a second. Here is the Zerk. This is the rearmost of my Zerks I got to grease today, right behind the rear differential. You can see you just press that switch, it reaches out, grabs right onto it, it's secure. You can see I'm tugging on it, nothing, not moving at all, not going to fall off, and just pump the grease in like normal. What I really like is this is not leaking at all right here where this connects to the Zerk. Beforehand, you sometimes get a little grease coming out, which is just that much more to clean up, and this can already be a sloppy job. So anywhere you can eliminate some of the cleanup, good in my book. And I just saw a bunch of grease squirt out, so I am done. So now I don't have to hassle with this at all. Don't have to risk banging my knuckles on my muffler or anything like that. Just press the switch. And there you go, look at that. So even though this is about 30 bucks, definitely worth it in my opinion. Now for the forward two most facing Zerk fittings, we will be using this. It's a separate attachment, just a needle attachment, as you can see why it's called that. I will put a link in the description down below in case you want to get these, and I will say it definitely makes the forward 2 Zerk fittings easier to do. Still kind of tricky just because you do have to hold the tip of the needle right there where the grease comes out. Not sure if the hole's going to come up on camera, but you do have to hold that by hand in the center of the Zerk fitting where there is like a little bearing that will just shoot the grease in directly in that way. So here's one of the forward Zerks. This is actually the most forward on my truck. The way it comes out from where it's attached, it's not exactly 90 degrees, so it's actually sort of angled towards your drive shaft or propeller shaft, which just makes it difficult to get the larger, like, cylindrical fitting on your grease gun on there. So definitely recommend using one of the needle attachments for this forwardmost Zerk, and then the one right behind that right here on the forward side of your transfer case. And while we are down here anyway, rolling around having a ton of fun, might as well check to make sure everything is torqued properly. These right here for your carrier bearing, these bolts, one on either side. This is a 17mm on my 2014 Tacoma. Gonna check to make sure that is torqued to 27 foot-pounds. Here towards the back you will have 4 of these bolts on the flange yoke. These are 14mm and they are torqued down to 65 foot-pounds. This is the one connecting into the rear differential. You have another same 14mm 65 foot-pounds there connecting into the transfer case. And same deal towards the front of the vehicle in front of the transfer case. 4 more bolts, 14mm 65 foot-pounds. And then at the very front of your propeller shaft, same deal once again. And just like that, you and I have successfully greased your drive shaft. But more importantly, we kept the perverted comments to a minimum. As always, thank you so much for supporting the channel by watching this video, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you in the next video.